Ken, you got your farm all closed up for the year?
Yeah, we do, Paul.
Uh-huh.
Saturday 18th was our last shareholder pickup day, and I've been pulling out rows, and we either covering with red clover or covering with grass cut from the field. But that takes another week or so. We've still got
Right.
stuff that
There's always something to do, but the work winds down now.
yeah, it is definitely wound down. Yeah.
Great. So was it a good year with all this
Yes,
water?
it was.
Uh-huh.
This is the first time that I can recall that we weren't taking surplus either down to the soup kitchen or over to Vernon's version of it. Having 25 shareholders, I think, made the difference. We grew just about as much this year as we did the year before, but served more people.
Oh, great.
You know, with 25 shareholders, we probably had 75 to 80 people.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is.
From one little plot of land.
Yep. Yes.
Well, we have a Chinese family on Eastwood that grows almost all of their food that they eat in their backyard. So the building lot is 100 by 200. So their garden is probably 50 by 50. Have you seen that, Luann, down on Eastwood? And from what I've been told, they produce the vast majority of all the food they eat on that one plot. They have some ducks and they have some chickens. Have you heard the ducks? No? Luckily, they don't have roosters.
Yeah.
Paul, would roosters be forbidden in the residential area?
I think so.
Good question. They should be. I don't know. We talked about that at one point, didn't we? I forget what we decided.
Oh, yeah.
Off and on for.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear they have ducks and chickens down there. I thought our lots were too small.
I think there's a
By
certain
size.
It's by size. There's a certain number you can have. Yeah.
Certain number, yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed. Where is this located?
I shouldn't read on them. It's over in Ashford.
Eastwood Road.
Good
Linda.
Oh, Sarah.
Nobody is
So
complaining.
I'm now gonna stop sharing my screen and we are gonna start recording.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Linda and Paul, I have to leave at 7:45 for another meeting
Okay.
for redistricting.
Ooh,
Oh, that's an important meeting.
yeah.
Let's hope it doesn't affect us much.
Amen to that.
We should be able to keep our district mostly in Mansfield.
So, Paul, it's 6:30. You said 1, so you can get started
Oh,
whenever
okay.
you are
All
ready.
right. Okay, I call to order the September 20th meeting of the Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission. And Ms. Painter, could you call the roll, please? At 6:31 p.m.
Coursey,
Coursey present.
Aho,
Aho present.
Chandy,
Andy present.
Cooley,
Cooley present.
Totten,
Totten present.
Bertoni,
Bertoni present.
Plant,
Plant present.
Ron,
Ron present.
Ward,
Ward present.
alternate DeVivo.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a full complement of members this evening, so I do, Mr. DeVivo, I do not believe will be seated
Okay,
unless someone has to leave, as Ms. Ward noted, or has a conflict.
okay. Hang on, John, you'll be taking part in an hour or so. Okay, so we have minutes from August 30th, regular meeting.
This is Chandy. I move that they be accepted as presented.
Okay, moved by Chandy,
Plant seconds.
Plant seconds. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, thank you, unanimous. Do we have a zoning agent report? Jillian?
Yep.
Okay,
Wait.
Could I just ask a question?
yes,
Ward here. I noted that you have 9 junkyards or light. And I know that 5 are active and 4 are under investigation. Can you tell me what that means?
Well, the active ones, we have one currently that is in Superior Court. Kevin Deneen is handling that one. So typically, Keith and I have been using active for the ones that we've confirmed, and under investigation when we're kind of working with the homeowners to try to correct the violation.
It takes a long time to get it to active, does it?
Very long.
Very long.
Yeah.
Lot of work. Thank you.
okay, we have a public hearing. And Ms. Painter, could you do the introductory remarks for us?
I would be happy to. For the record, this is Linda Painter. As a reminder to all participants, including members and staff, please state your name before speaking. For those viewing at home on live stream, please understand that there is a 1 to 2 minute time lag due to transmission delays. If you'll be providing verbal testimony during the public hearing, you can call into the meeting at any time. We will take a few minutes after the applicant's presentation to give people time to call in. The guidelines for this evening's public hearings. The purpose of tonight's hearings is to receive relevant information about the proposed applications from the public. Order and decorum shall be maintained at all times during the hearings. The Commission reserves the right to adjourn the hearing to another date and time if the discussion becomes unruly and unmanageable. Given the virtual format, we ask that everyone bear with us if we encounter any glitches. If we're unable to overcome technical issues and/or the Commission is having difficulty understanding information presented in this format, the hearing will be continued to another meeting. The order of presentations this evening will first be applicant, and then public comment in the order of support, opposition, and then undetermined or request for additional information. When addressing the Commission, state your name and address and any party, group, or organization you represent for the record before beginning your comments. Limit your comments to the subject of the public hearing. Avoid repetition where possible. Summarize reports and letters that are submitted to the Commission rather than reading them aloud, as all written information is copied and distributed to members. Direct all questions and comments to the chair. Do not attempt to engage in dialogue with members of the Commission, staff, or any other parties to the hearing. Speak clearly to ensure your comments are audible to members of the public watching from home and are recorded. Commission members may ask questions of anyone providing testimony, but will not discuss the relative merits of the application until the hearing is closed. Failure to abide by these policies and procedures may result in a muting of your microphone or in dismissal from the hearing. Instructions on how to participate in the public hearing are listed on the agenda and should also now be showing on the screen. For those who would like to call in, please call 1-929-205-6099. Enter meeting ID 879-3755-1272 and passcode 736585. That's telephone number 1-929-205-6099, meeting ID 879-3755-1272, and passcode 736585. If you encounter any problems calling into the hearing, please call 860-429-3330 and a staff member will assist you. The first hearing you have this evening was scheduled for 6:30 p.m. PZC initiated amendments to Article 7 of the zoning regulations related to the manufacture and sale of alcoholic liquor, PZC file 907-52.
Okay, thank you. The public hearing is opened at 6:38 p.m. Members present are Aho, Corsi, Chandy, Cooley, Cotton, Fertoni, Plant, Ron, Ward, and alternate DeVivo, who is not seated for this hearing. And we have a legal notice to read.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Again, this is Linda Painter. The following legal notice was published in the Chronicle on September 7th, 2021 and September 15th, 2021. The Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold the following public hearing on September 20th, 2021 via a web-based virtual meeting to hear comments regarding the following application. At 6:30 p.m., PZC initiated amendments to Article 7 of the zoning regulations related to the manufacture and sale of alcoholic liquor, PZC file 907-52. No information from the public shall be received after the close of the public hearings. Additional information regarding this application is available in the planning office. Paul Aho, Chair, Vera Ward, Secretary. I do have a few communications to note, and two of them are from councils of government. So I am going to need to read those. And for the record, I will note that while I take a drink of water, as I do this, it is fruit water in colored, so it may look like it is something else, but it is in fact water, just for the record. Don't want anyone when thinking something else. So for communications this evening, you have a memo from me dated September 15th, 2021, a communication from Sam Schifrin dated September 16th, 2021, Agriculture Committee meeting notes from August 24th, 2021, Economic Development Commission minutes from August 19th, 2021. And I will note with regard to those meeting notes and minutes, both of these committees did not have quorums, so they were not able to take formal action, but you will see the discussion that they had regarding a referral. You will also see listed on the agenda all of the referrals that we did, including the mandatory town clerk referral, public notice registry, adjoining communities, and as I noted, we did send this to the Capital Region Council of Governments, Southeast Connecticut Council of Governments, and Northeast Connecticut Council of Governments, and received 2 comments in reply. I will start with the Capital Region comments dated August 12th, 2021. And I'm going to just skip directly to the comment. They acknowledged the receipt and added a description of the referral. And the comment is as follows. The staff of the Regional Planning Commission of the Capital Region Council of Governments has reviewed the zoning referral and finds no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. The public hearing date has been scheduled for September 20th, 2021. In accordance with our procedures, this letter will constitute final CROG action on this referral. Questions concerning this referral should be directed to Christopher Henchy. Respectfully submitted, Jennifer Bardis, early chairman, Brendan Malone, vice chairman, and signed and submitted by Christopher Henchy, transportation planner. You also received comments from the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments, and it dated September 8th, 2021. Dear Mr. Aho, I'm writing in response to an application for amendments to the zoning regulations of the town of Mansfield. The application was referred to this agency pursuant to section 8-3B of the Connecticut General Statutes. The proposed zoning regulation amendments seek to 1, add farmers markets as a use permitted in the RAR 90 and I zones, 2, add farm breweries and distilleries as uses permitted in the RAR 90 and PBRA zones. And 3, add farm breweries, farm distilleries, farmers markets, and manufacture of wine, cider, or mead as uses to which sale of alcohol would be an accessory use. Based on a review of the material submitted, I do not believe the proposed regulation amendments will have a negative intermunicipal impact. If you have any questions, please contact me at 860-889-2324. Sincerely, Samuel Alexander, AICP Planner 3. So those are the communications that you have received. I will note in this case, since this is a commission initiated application, we don't have an applicant to do a presentation. So if the commission will indulge me, I'll give a brief overview of the proposed amendments just for the public. So as noted in some of those communications, there are 3 basic things that the amendments will be doing if they are approved by the commission. The first one is that we will be adding farm breweries, farm distilleries, farmers markets, and manufacture of wine, cider, or mead to the list of uses to which sale of alcohol would be permitted as an accessory use. We would also be adding farm breweries and distilleries to the list of authorized uses in the RAR 90 and PBRA zones, provided special permit approval is obtained. And I will note the commission actually added farm wineries to those districts several years ago, subject to special permit approval. So this proposed change really just expands it to agricultural alcohol production to include beer and other liquors. And the other changes we are recommending is that we add farmers market to the list of authorized uses in the RAR 90 and I zones. The markets would be permitted by right, provided the market is located on the site of a government facility or use. Otherwise, special permit approval would be required. And quite frankly, I'll note that this is really codifying, I would say, kind of current practice. Farmers markets actually aren't referenced in our zoning regulations today, which was something that I realized when working on the amendment to allow the farmers market permits for alcohol sales. And as you all know, the Storrs Farmers Market operates in the summer on the grounds of Town Hall, which is zoned institutional or I, and in the winters at the Mansfield Public Library, which is in the RAR 90 zone. So we took this opportunity to codify existing practice with that. A couple of other notes just for the public on this. The town council recently amended the list of types of alcohol sales permits that are allowed in Mansfield to include a manufacturer of wine, cider, or mead, as well as the farmers market. Those are 2 requests that we had pending. As the commission is aware, prior to this summer, the only way for that list to be amended would have taken a referendum that had to be petitioned by 10% of registered voters. The legislature changed the law on that this summer and allowed the legislative body, which is the town council, to make those changes. So they did hold a public hearing and made those changes, as well as adding a patio permit, which is basically an extension of use. And that was a clarification because, quite frankly, I think we've been looking at patio permits when you have it with a restaurant as part of the original permit. The council will be looking at the overall list of alcohol permits authorized by the state and has a committee that will be reviewing that and proposing more changes. At this time, I will note that farm wineries, farm breweries, farm distilleries, as well as breweries, brew pub, and restaurant, those last 2 are already listed in the regulations, are not, while they're listed in the regulations and identified for locations where they're permitted, you can't actually authorize anything until the ordinance is changed to allow those types of uses. So in some steps, you're ahead of the council, and in other cases, they're a little ahead of you. So we're kind of shuffling a little bit here. Do any members of the commission have any questions with the proposed changes? All right, with that, I am going to share my screen again so that, I still am screen sharing. Getting used to Zoom, did not realize that was still up. So I noticed that we do have a few folks that have joined us. I do believe they're here for a new business item. Is there anyone who is in the meeting currently who is here to speak on as part of this public hearing? All right. In that case, Mr. Chair, the information has been up for folks to call in. I can read the number again, 1-929-205-6099, meeting ID 879-3755-1272, and passcode 736585 for anyone who wishes to speak about the proposed changes regarding the manufacture and sale of alcohol.
Should we wait a couple minutes to see if someone calls?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, let's wait. 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Till 6:50.
Mr. Chair, if you would like, just so we don't have dead air while we're waiting to see if anyone calls in, I can also read the communication from Sam Schifrin if you would like.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So the following communication was received from Sam and Michelle Schifrin, dated September 16th, 2021. Dear Commission, please accept this letter as written testimony in support of the subject proposed amendments to the Mansfield zoning regulations. We believe that these modifications help to more appropriately align Mansfield with other Connecticut communities, thus improving Mansfield's ability to attract and develop local businesses. We therefore respectfully request that you approve the amendments as proposed. Since there are several potential applicants, including us, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, in which some cases have been extensively delayed due to the COVID-19, we also ask that if possible, you consider closing the public hearing and taking action regarding these amendments as soon as possible during the September 20th, 2021 meeting. Thank you very much for your consideration of these important matters. Sincerely, Sam and Michelle Schifrin, owners, the Kirby Mill.
Okay, very good. So we do not have any public testimony. That is.
We do not. It's 6:49, so it's as soon as it turns 6:50. Since you gave folks to call in, you can at 6:50 you can now entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Okay. Would someone like to make such a motion?
Ward moves that we close the public hearing.
Okay. Move by Ward.
Tony seconds.
Okay, second by Tony. All in favor? Okay, I believe that's unanimous. Thank you very much. The public hearing is closed at 6:50 p.m. And our next, we have a hearing that's canceled. We just need to take note of that, Linda.
Yes, I think just for the public's information, there was a hearing on the special permit application of Haven Communities for a mixed-use project scheduled for 6:40 p.m. The hearing has been canceled. The applicant did submit a letter of withdrawal for this application. I do want to specifically note for the record that the applicant in their letter of withdrawal noted that the reason had to do with statutory time constraints, not because there's any lack of interest in pursuing the project. They plan on resubmitting the application in the near future. So this project is not going away permanently. This is just considered a hiatus, but we were running out of time from a statutory standpoint to get everything done. So they are withdrawing and will be resubmitting.
Very good. We can move on to old business. Which is request for retroactive approval of a gravel road and associated wetlands crossing. And Ms. Kaufman, you have some updates for us on that?
Well, based on, excuse me, I want to just note that Vera Ward's recusing herself.
Okay, all right.
Well, based on your discussion at your last meeting, and in conferring with Vice Chair Ron, I prepared a motion that is in your packet. I'm not sure if you have any questions regarding that, or if someone wants to put it forth and then ask questions.
You want to put it forward, Ken?
Yeah, Paul,
Okay.
since I worked with
Yeah.
Jen had written and I approved, I'll go on and go on
Okay.
the record as presenting it as well.
Thank you.
Move to deny the request by Ronald Beebe, applicant owner, for the retroactive approval of a gravel road and associated culverted wetland crossing, and an associated request to authorize hunting within the Gifford Estates Section 3 Conservation Easement. Ronald Beebe, PCC File 810. This action is based on the finding that these activities are not consistent with the terms of the conservation easement filed in volume 213, page 118 of the Town of Mansfield Land Records, is shown on a survey filed in book 14, pages 84 through 90 of the Town of Mansfield Land Records. The Planning and Zoning Commission directs the applicant owner to establish a barrier to permanently block vehicular access through the conservation easement. Said barrier must be approved by the inland wetlands agent and block access to the road at each end of the easement, and shall be installed no later than November 15, 2021. The applicant shall work with the inland wetlands agency to determine the best course of action to mitigate the impact of the culvert and road on the wetlands.
Okay, moved by Ron. Is there a second?
Second by Cotton.
Okay, second by Cotton. Discussion. Ken, I assume that the discussion of the best, what was the words on the end of it? The best action, best way to go forward. Show me that last line again. Okay, the best course of action to mitigate the impact. I assume that that part of it may mean that very little is done to the road. It would just be.
It could.
Mhm,
Remember, we're blocking access from both
Right.
ends.
right.
And I think by and large, we're leaving it up to the inland wetlands agent to talk about what would be the best mitigation
Mhm.
for what has been the impact already of the culvert and the road on the wetlands.
Right.
And as I said, we've trusted Jen with these things before, and
Yeah.
that's essentially what we're doing now.
Okay.
I'm assuming too that when that happens, that Jen will be back to us and describe what it is that actually has taken place.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, I'll,
I have a quick question.
yes,
Is the idea that the barriers at each end could be temporary if the culvert were to be removed? I mean, is that an option?
I'm assuming this means a permanent barrier, right, Jennifer?
It doesn't, in the motion, it does not say permanent, but if you
Uh-huh.
want it to be permanent, maybe you should add permanent as a friendly amendment.
It says permanently block access.
Oh, yes, it does. Establish a barrier
Okay.
to permanently block
Yeah.
vehicular access.
Okay, never mind. Missed that.
Oops, Vera, we can't hear Vera, but she's,
I think she's talking on the phone. So
Okay.
She's recused herself.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? If not, those in favor, raise your hand. I can't see everyone. Can we take off? the
Mr. Chair,
motion?
I
Yes.
just realized, since Ward is recused, have you seated
Oh, yes.
Mr. DeVivo for
Good
this
point.
vote?
Yes, John, you're seated for this vote. Why don't you take the motion away so I can see people? Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor? It looks to be unanimous, including Mr. DeVivo. Okay. The other old business is the amendment to Article 7 related to the manufacture and sale of alcoholic liquor.
And I believe at this point, Ms. Ward is rejoining. Vera, can you just raise your hand to confirm you're rejoining?
Okay.
All right. So
Vera's
John, you are,
back.
no,
John?
Vera's back. John's no longer seated.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion for that, Linda? Because we could put the motion up and then discuss it.
We do in fact have a motion. I will warn you, as it is always the case with approval motions, it's 4 slides. So
We need someone who has leather lungs. That means Ken. He's the one with leather lungs.
This could be shared.
It could be shared. Yes, could be shared. Okay, who would like to read this? Who would like, well, the question really is, who would like to put this motion forward?
I'll lead off.
Okay, yes, it could be split. You can stop in the middle and pass it off to
no.
Carlita as
Good, I
well.
did
No,
see
we can't do
Carlita's
that.
hand. All right.
Can't do that.
Cannot do that.
You gotta think outside the box, Linda.
Well, I will tell you the other way we can do this is I can read this and someone can say moved and seconded, if that would make people feel better.
Okay, do you want to do that?
I see some
perfectly
nodding of
okay
heads
with hearing
saying
Linda.
yes. So, all right. So for the record, this is Linda Painter. I am reading a draft motion that was prepared so that a member of the commission, if they so desire, can move and or second this. And I will show that it's shown on your screen right now. The motion is to approve, subject to the revisions noted below, amendments to Article 7 of the Mansfield zoning regulations dated August 2nd, 2021, file 907-52, related to the manufacture and sale of alcohol and farmers markets. The subject zoning regulation amendments were presented at public hearing on September 20th, 2021, and filed prior to the hearing with the Mansfield Town Clerk. The amendment shall be effective as of October 1st, 2021. In approving the amendments to the zoning regulations, the Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed and considered all public hearing testimony and communications, including reports from the CROG and CCOG Regional Planning Commissions, Mansfield's Director of Planning and Development, and the Mansfield Town Attorney. The Commission makes the following findings in adoption of these amendments as modified by this approval motion. These amendments are adopted pursuant to the provisions and authority granted by Section 8-2 of the Connecticut General Statutes, which grant the PZC the following: the authority to regulate the location and use of buildings, structures, and land for trade, industry, residence, or other purposes, the mandate to promote the health and general welfare and to facilitate adequate provision for transportation, water, sewerage, schools, parks, and other requirements, and to consider the impact of regulation on agriculture. 2, the amendments promote the purposes of zoning regulations identified in Article 1 of Mansfield zoning regulations by encouraging the most appropriate use of land and protecting and enhancing the value of properties. 3, the proposed amendments will help to implement Goal 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, and 6.5 of the Mansfield Tomorrow Plan of Conservation and Development, POCD, related to diversifying the economy, and that should have been goals. 4, the amendments are considered acceptably worded and suitably coordinated with related zoning provisions. Furthermore, the subject regulations are adopted for the following reasons: changes to alcohol permits for the manufacturing of wine, cider, and mead, and farmers market sales permits are needed to address recent changes to the Code of Ordinances, adding these permits to the list of permitted alcohol sales permits in Mansfield. The addition of farm breweries and distilleries to the list of uses allowed by special permit in the RAR 90 and PBRA zones expands the existing farm winery category to include agricultural manufacturing of other types of alcohol. Such uses would not be authorized until a corresponding change is made to the Code of Ordinances with regard to alcohol sales permits for these uses. The addition of farmers markets to RAR 90 and I districts codifies the existing use of government facilities in these districts for farmers markets on a by right basis, while requiring special permit authorization on non-governmental property. And that, I believe, is the end of the motion. Yes.
I move that we accept the motion as read by by Linda Painter.
Okay, moved by Ward,
Plant second.
second by Plant. Any discussion? Can you, oh yeah, thank you. Okay, now I can see people. All right. Any discussion on this topic? If not, we can move forward for a vote. Those in favor, raise your hand. I believe that's unanimous. Vote in favor. Motion passes. For new business, we have receipt of an application for a scenic road alteration. It's simply a receipt. We have a motion for receipt motion in the packet.
There is a motion, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, and I will happily put that on the screen for you as well.
Okay, thank you. You want to read it, Sarah?
I do.
Good. Thank you.
The Corsi moves to receive the application of Frank Holly, applicant, Howard and Alice Raphaelson, owners, for alterations to properties located on the east side of Dog Lane, south of the intersection with Bundy Lane, pursuant to the Scenic Road Ordinance, to schedule a public hearing on the proposed alterations for October 4th, 2021 via virtual meeting, and to refer the application to the tree warden, assistant town engineer, the town council, and property owners on Dog Lane who have frontage within 500 feet of the subject project.
Okay, moved by Corsi,
Chandy seconds.
Chandy second. All in favor? Okay, unanimous, accepted. And
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before you move off of this item, we do need to, would you like to have a field trip on this?
sure.
Okay, so in terms of everyone's calendar, the hearing is actually 2 weeks from tonight, so it's probably either this week or next week. My suggestion would be the Thursday, the 30th, if that works for folks. Is there a specific time that would be better?
Anytime is fine with me. Ken? Are we close to the 30th already? Where did this month go? Ken, do you want to say something? Unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, I'm not available in the afternoon,
Okay. Do you
but
wanna
I
do
don't
it?
know as I should be the dependent factor in this.
I can do mornings. Vera? Unmute.
Come on. On that, am I unmuted?
Yes.
On that date, I would be, it would be better for me in the morning.
Okay, let's do the morning. Linda, can you get free in the morning?
Yep.
Okay,
So, is there a preference for the morning?
how about 10 o'clock?
10?
10 a.m.
So
on the
September 30th at 10 a.m.
Perfect. Okay, now we have a pre-application review.
Yes, and I just for those members who can't make that hearing, I will note that the applicant has painted the proposed driveway locations and flag trees for removal so that you can actually drive by
Okay.
on your own and see where the proposed alterations will be.
Okay, very good. Pre-application review.
Yes, we have a pre-application review.
Those
Mr.
are always
Chair.
interesting.
And I do have a couple of things here, both for the commission and for the public. One, we did notice an error, an inadvertent error on the agenda this morning. So we did issue a corrected agenda on the advice of the town clerk. The original agenda said that the pre-application was going to be for proposed redevelopment of 106 Storage Road, Champaign Motors. It's actually the proposed development of 705 Middle Turnpike. And all of the attachments refer to that. So there's a little bit of a difference there. I will say I did get one call after we had made that correction, kind of going, I don't understand. I'm like, it's for Middle Turnpike, not for Storage Road. So we do have, as you know, we periodically have these requests. Pursuant to the policies adopted by the PZC on May 19th, 2014, the pre-application review shall be limited to a total of 30 minutes, including applicant presentation and commission questions. The pre-application review and any results or information obtained from it may not be appealed under any provision of the general statutes by any person or entity, and shall not be binding on the applicant or any authority, commission, department, agency, or other official having jurisdiction to review the proposed project. I will also note that pursuant to those policies, the commission does not allow public comment during these reviews. So this is solely discussion between the commission and the prospective applicant. And with that, I will, if you are okay with it, Mr. Chair, turn it over to the applicants so that they can start their presentation.
Okay.
And it's 7:08 p.m.
Okay.
We okay?
Yes,
we are
go
good.
ahead.
Okay. So my name is, first of all, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. My name is Michael Charles. I'm a principal with Benchmark Development. We are a regional development firm centered in Great Barrington, Mass, which is Western Massachusetts. We do work within about a 3 or 4 hour radius from our location here. And typically our projects are in the work areas of hotels, mixed-use developments, redevelopments, multifamily projects. The multifamily projects are often in-town redevelopment sites. Sometimes they're cottage communities. Sometimes they are townhouse communities. Generally, our effort is to try to design a development that kind of blends in and fits with the architectural integrity of the area. Our projects are typically in tertiary markets, either small cities or rural areas in New England, such as Great Barrington or Lee. We do have a couple projects there. We tend to look for areas that have some kind of a strong demand generator, whether it's a resort. We do a good bit of work out in central New York with the Turning Stone Casino there, so that's a demand generator. Or we're looking for areas that have things like research institutions, research facilities, and again, just trying to focus on markets that are generally overlooked by much larger developers. Because typically in New England, especially, there's just a ton of markets that actually have underdeveloped modern purpose-built housing. So that is certainly a niche for us. We have a site in Mansfield that we're interested in developing. It's in the Four Corners area, and I have our civil engineer with us as well, Greg Fitzgerald from Bowler Engineering, and he can go over some of the details of the site. But he has site plans that he can talk about. And our objective really is to try to figure out if this development that we're suggesting is something that the town is interested in, if it's the kind of character for development you're looking for, and if we can figure out a way to get it to fit within the zoning that you have currently. Just as an overview, the development is essentially, it's as Linda said, it's at 705 Middle Turnpike, and it's essentially a development of about 250 apartments. The structural design would be a townhouse, cottage type development, so scattered about the site. And, the design aesthetic would sort of be, a typical clapboard, pitched roof, New England type design. And again, as I noted, our objective really is to try to figure out if this particular site, if we can figure out a way to have either the site reclassified, it's not currently zoned in a way that would support this, but either have the zoning reclassified or use the multifamily avenue that is already in your statutes. So I think what I would do is introduce Jeff Fitzgerald. He could probably bring up the site plan, and have a little bit of a conversation about how he sees the zoning setup right now and what he's thinking the path might be for us to get the appropriate zoning for the project that we're suggesting. Are you there, Jeff?
I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Well, so first off, I'm just going to orient everyone. Can you see my screen? It looks like you can.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So 705 Middle Turnpike. Middle Turnpike here is running on the right of the page, Daleville Road. And this is the Wellington Town Line, runs across here, north being to the west. And just to give context, it is currently zoned RAR 90. And as I'm sure you may be aware that in the RAR 90 zone, there is a provision to allow multifamily in accordance with Section 10D to, if you meet certain criteria, at the rate of 8.7 units per developable acre. So we did a developable area analysis on this parcel. Again, it's zoned area 90, and this is the wetlands have been delineated on the site. Those are shown in blue, and the steep slopes greater than 15% have been identified on the site, and that's the area in orange. And at the same time, the provision that allows multifamily residents in an RAR 90 zone requires that 40% of the site or 20 acres, whichever is larger, be set aside as open space. So that is achieved in our site plan design with this large set aside on the northern end of the site. And as Michael said, Benchmark's goal is really basically a loop road that works with the topography on site and has a series of cottage-style townhomes, porches, some duplex, some quads, some larger groups, and community amenities, and associated stormwater management at the perimeter, and again, large amount of open space. Let's see if I can pull up. I want to pull up one other aspect here, which is the off of the town GIS map, just to orient everyone to the site relative to the Four Corners. I feel like this is pretty critical. North being up, this is the parcel, the primary parcel that we're looking at. It also includes 705 and this larger piece. So again, it's presently zoned RAR 90. Four Corners is this intersection here, the corporation line with Wellington here. And as the commission's familiar with, water and sewer are in Route 195, Stores Road. Connecticut Water certainly comes up here and would be interested in certainly serving the site. And then the sanitary sewer that serves Four Corners turns the corner and gets to this point. So it's a very short extension of the sanitary sewer to be able to access that. I feel like it's if you look at the way density is proposed in the vicinity of Four Corners, it's presently concentrated on the west side, and I feel like it's it's not really out of context to do what we're proposing as a transitional piece from the Four Corners into the rest of rural Mansfield to the east, and take advantage of node as being a more appropriate for moderate density as opposed to RAR 90, 2-acre density. That's, I think, the gist of it. Like I said, it's if we could, we have the ability to set aside the required 20 acres of open space, allowing us to qualify to do multifamily residence on that site at the density of 8.7 units per developable acre.
Can you pump sewerage up that steep hill from 705 to the top of the hill? Is there any limit to how, I don't know anything about pumping sewerage, but.
Top of what hill?
So you're proposing to put it into the sewer, which is goes just a short distance east from Four Corners.
Yes. Yeah.
And where that ends is at the top of a hill, and then it goes down pretty steeply to 705. So is that an engineering problem?
No, it would be a relatively simple pump station if one is needed. Certainly gravity out of the site, but it's certainly in Mansfield there's a more significant pump sewer systems than that.
Right. Vera.
Can't tell if I'm muted or not.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. It looks like there's residential areas on the west and south side, and not showing on the back side there is residential. So is your right of way in through the wetlands, just past the wetlands?
No, the access is there's a current driveway which we'd be using the similar curb cut to the residence at 705, and so you can access that without disturbing any wetlands. And the only wetlands are really on the north side, where that'll be maintained as open space. This area here, if you can see my cursor, as open space, and then there is residential on the west side, but a large buffer in this parcel surrounding it. And again, we're proposing concentrating our development really in the southern 2/3 of that parcel.
What is that parcel to the right of the 1927-33 area there? What is that parcel? Is that part of your parcel where your cursor is?
This piece? Yeah, no, it is not part of our.
It's not part of your parcel.
You may recall, Vera, that there was a project proposed for that particular piece of land, which we haven't heard from lately.
I see. I guess I'm confusing that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I could, I'm going to ask Jeff to turn a layer on for me, but also to clarify the parcel he was pointing at, there was not been a proposal there.
Oh, it's the next one over.
It was the next one over.
Okay,
and at the time that, as you may recall, there was a lot of opposition from the folks in that subdivision, and at least the direction from the commission a few years ago with regard to that parcel that split zone P01, it's 661 A and B,
right,
was that multifamily would not be an appropriate use there. Maybe cottages, maybe single family, but not a multifamily project. Jeff, could you click on the historic village layer? Where Jen and I are both having trouble accessing Main Street maps right now from Town Hall.
Can you see that?
Yes. Yep. Thank you. So the one thing that I wanted to raise with regard to the section of regulations that Jeff was citing is that there is another criteria that has to be met in order for multifamily to be considered. And it is essentially three parts. One, the site has to be located within the 2009 Four Corners Sewer Service area. This property is not. Two, it cannot be located within a historic village. As you can see, the front of this property is located within a historic village. And then the last part of that was complying with affordable housing requirements. Any development over 5 units has to do that. So it's really the first two locational pieces. So when we had met with Jeff, we had identified that this is not within. Not only is it not within the Four Corners Sewer Service area, I believe the WPCA would actually have to amend the sewer service. It's not within any sewer service area for the town. So the WPCA, I believe, would have to amend the sewer service map in order to add, to basically shift that line and to encompass this property and presumably the ones that are located between it and that parcel that is split zoned PO1. So the other piece that we had mentioned to the applicant during that meeting was that in our future land use map, this was shown as being rural agricultural residence forestry. So that's something that the commission would have to consider with any change in zoning regulations.
Ken,
or
and
change
then
in
Vera.
zoning map, I should say.
Ken and Vera.
Linda, in the last 5 or 6 months, we had water, I think, and sewer, the one up Daleville Road to the
Just
apartments
water.
in Willington.
Just
So there
water.
is currently, am I
There
correct
is
about that?
There's a water line that runs up 44, east on 44, and then north on Daleville Road to connect the Willington Oaks apartment complex. So that was actually done and paid for by the owner of Willington Oaks because they were under a consent order from the Department of Public Health because of some water issues. So there is a water line extension that was done for public health reasons so that this property does have access to public water. I will also note that there's another section of the zoning regulations that really has specific regulations when you're connecting to Connecticut water. So that's something that, Jeff, I would encourage you to look at in terms of how this property would meet those standards. It refers back to, if I can pull it up, I will. It refers back to the 2006 POCD. And if the commission, though some of you may remember that when the agreement was done, there was a lot of concern at the state level about inducing growth. So it does specifically say that no connection shall be authorized for new or expanded uses unless one or more of the following conditions is met. One, the type and intensity of use is consistent with the plan development designation identified in the 2006 Plan of Conservation Development. So not our current plan, but our previous plan. And that, or for properties where a change in use is proposed, the developer must demonstrate that the proposed use is consistent with the current POCD and that the water demands of the proposed use are equivalent to or less than the water demands of uses allowed pursuant to the 2006 POCD, or that the uses could be supported by an on-site water system. So that's something that you actually saw a little bit of recently with the now defunct Capstone application, where they did submit hydro geological analysis to demonstrate for the portion of the property that had been zoned RER 90 and planned for low density residential in 2006 and was rezoned to planned business, that portion of the property could supply enough water to support the proposed residential development that would be on that portion of the property. It was not intended to support the entire the portion that was in the planned business area, the original planned business area.
Vera?
It seems, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah, it seems to me that there are some major zoning changes and other changes that need to be made in order to make this happen. And I'd like to see them delineated one by one so that we can be aware of what we're being asked to do and how or whether we're willing to do that. So I'd like to have them carefully delineated on what changes would need to be, what they're going to have to ask for in order to make this a go.
It does seem with the water and the zoning change and the historic distance, it's a heavy lift.
Well, it's not a zoning change per se. Multifamily is allowed in the RAR 90 zone at that rate if you meet the requirements. Now, we meet the requirements under that zone with the 20 acres of open space. Where the discussion comes into is, like Linda brought up, the historic village is on the front of the site, but it's also, there's a New Cumberland Farms on this corner in the historic village. There's a Dunkin' Donuts here in the historic village and a CVS. And that's, I don't know how that's sort of like not a very enforced historic village code as far as my readout. And again, I could be wrong on that. And again, water is here, and so really we would be able to, with 20 acres of open space on a over 40 acre site, we'd be able to have, I think, develop on site or demonstrate that we could develop on site wells if, as was the case with Capstone, on a smaller site, you were able to demonstrate that you could develop on site water if push came to shove, but because there's a public water main in front of it that is willing and eager to sell water to a development, that would that you'd be required to connect to the public water main. The sewer, in the way I read it, would be a application through the town of Mansfield, the WPCA, to give an analysis of the available capacity of the treatment plants and the infrastructure that's been put in place, and with the proposed units at Capstone not being built, there's and this is a much smaller development than being proposed there. That doesn't seem like a terribly hard ask on our part.
Would you envision this as being a student-oriented development?
It's a market rate development. Honestly, it's in an area that there are TAs and professors and students. So I'm sure there'll be some portion of the development that has those residents, but it's really geared toward market rate, the general market. So
it's not an apartment style development, but more like townhomes, cottage style townhomes.
The townhomes that are rented or sold?
Rented.
Rented. Okay.
Yes.
Ron, Ken?
Mr. Fitzgerald, Mr. Charles, you are aware that the low-income affordable housing requirements would affect this particular development?
Right.
Okay. My inclination, Paul, and the rest of the committee, I've thought for a long time that this designation of historic village in this particular area, I think is meaningless. And I would be open at least to hearing more about how we would go about it. And I do realize that the restrictions that we thought about some now 12, 15 years ago with regard to the sewer, that would have to be changed by the WPCA in order for this project to go forward. But I'm open to hearing more.
Okay. So the sewer remains really the main stumbling block in figuring out exactly the process for how we can make it applicable to this site, or that's what I'm hearing anyway.
The ordinance and the regulations about the sewer are in place.
Yep.
You would have to deal with that. In other words, we couldn't do anything with regard to the land unless that were done.
Right.
And just to be clear, for the RAR 90, it was really limited to the 2009 Four Corners sewer service area, which this property is not a part of. And the other was to say not in a historic village. The one caveat I would note on this is that if an amendment were proposed to eliminate that restriction and say it would essentially allow multifamily anywhere in the RAR 90 zone. And so I think that I just want to bring that up because I think that's a significant change. You know, this was something that was proposed by a specific applicant, and the commission considered it with these conditions that it would be a very limited part of the RAR 90 zone where you could consider multifamily housing.
Linda, if I could just comment on that, I believe it would allow multifamily anywhere in the RAR 90 zone where, one, you are able to have 40% or 20 acres, whichever is larger, set aside as open space, and two, you would be able to connect to sanitary sewer.
So that's correct. So the sanitary sewer will limit it, but it will create a much broader area that I don't think was anticipated or planned for in the POCD for multifamily. And that's the commission's decision. I just need to raise that because ultimately anything you look at, we have to go back to the POCD and what you were contemplating.
Linda, can you point out, because I was looking for, where does it tie to the 2009 Plan of Conservation and Development?
Article 7, Section 16B, no site location for multifamily dwelling residences pursuant to this subsection 16 shall be approved unless A, the site 1 is located within the 2009 Four Corners sewer service area, and 2 is not located within a historic village, and B, it complies with the affordable housing requirements of Article 10, Section W.
Again, I'd like to have it delineated on all the things that it doesn't follow, that we have to consider changing. And also, I'm a little concerned about the intensity, but I just like this. There's a lot to think about before we just agree to this.
Yeah, well, this is a preliminary.
Yeah, we're not agreeing to anything.
I know, but no, I know that, but I mean,
and also we want to encourage people to do this kind of thing. We don't want to scare them off too soon. And we want to encourage them to present their case. Yes.
Right, and that's our intention, is really essentially to gauge your temperature.
Yeah.
We're not combative about these things. We say, you know, here's a property we have, here's an idea we have. Does it blend with what the town is interested in doing? And if it is, great. And if there's a pathway for us to figure it out, great. If it isn't, that's okay too. But we'd rather have these conversations up front. And
it looks as though the pathway is difficult.
Yeah.
Right.
Perhaps difficult, perhaps not impossible, but difficult.
Right. Okay. So Jeff, do you have a clear view or clear understanding? Because I'm not sure that I do for what our steps would be. Is it that we are applying to or contacting the POCD and asking for a change on that side? Is that really where we start on the process? Because I'm just trying to figure out our action plan based on the feedback that we're getting.
I think you have to start with the sewer, right, Linda?
Yeah, my read is that we'd start with the WPCA and get confirmation that they'd approve a sewer extension across the parcel to serve our site and have it and would willing take the capacity, because it's not predicated in the sewer service area in the in the study, but I don't know that, that's a statutory requirement, but that would be the approach I would take, is to go get that. And then if you have that, then I think it's just on the Planning Commission, because POCDs, and I'm not gonna attempt to play lawyer, but as I recall, in planning, POCDs are not statutory. The recommendations to a planning board. This is our 10-year plan, so you can do things in a planned standpoint, but they're not cut and dry, and they're constant throughout the state of Connecticut, and certainly in Mansfield, things get shifted and adjusted from what's established in a POCD and during their 10-year life.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We will do some homework and circle back.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, on to cannabis. At the Reg Review Committee, we came up with some ideas of how to proceed on this, and we wanted to bring it to the full commission tonight. And Linda has put together, has helped us fill out the form, which I hope you had a chance to look at.
So, Mr. Chair, I can kind of give everyone an overview of what was discussed if you like. I will note you did receive a communication that was added to your packet today. One thing I do want to note, having read the communication from, and I'm going to get his, let me see if I have his name, Jake Baxter. Is the one thing I do want to note is that he does refer to some things in Massachusetts and agreements that towns are able to do. And just for the commission's understanding, the Connecticut legislature specifically prohibited those types of agreements. So that this is not the types of things that he discusses towards the end of his letter is not an option in Connecticut. There are some benefits that the legislature has put into the statute for communities. So for example, 3% of gross receipts for retailers, hybrid retailers, and micro cultivators would be owed to the municipality. And for any, I believe it's retail facilities, the town has the ability to recoup up to $50,000 in public safety costs for the first 30 days after opening. So, but those are really the limits. And I will also say that 3%, any revenues we receive through that, should those facilities be permitted and materialize, there are actually limits on what you can use that funding for. So just so the types of things you're able to do in Connecticut or Massachusetts, I had a discussion with our town manager who worked there at the time, and he was like, oh, we had this agreement, we got this. No, we don't get to negotiate with individual businesses and create community agreements with them. In terms of the proposal itself in the framework, the first page, and let me share my screen just so everyone is seeing the same thing. The first thing that we did was to actually create a timeline. Your moratorium runs through March 21st of 2021. When the council reviewed that proposed moratorium, they did request that the commission really work as quickly as possible on this. Based on discussions the commission has had, as well as the committee, we came up with the following schedule. September was to develop the framework and approach to cannabis regulations. In October, Jennifer and I will review the framework with various advisory committees that we work with, such as agriculture, economic development, town university relations, to get their feedback on that framework. And then in early to mid-November 2021, we would like to have a joint meeting between the PZC and the Town Council to finalize the approach and the framework. Our recommendation is that we do that post-election, since this is an election cycle for all of you. In November, following that, we would draft the regulations and any ordinance amendments that would be needed, working with the Regulatory Review Committee and the Town Attorney. The Town Council would also need to work on any changes it needs to the Code of Ordinances that I anticipate would primarily be deal with use of cannabis products. And then public hearings in February. We could potentially, depending on how quickly we get this done, have them in January. However, I think as everyone on the commission is aware, it's generally frowned upon by the university community for us to do public hearings on major zoning regulations when they are on break. So that gives us the timeline. In terms of the framework, we basically went through the different types of cannabis establishments. I will note anything that is in red was something that when I started filling out the chart after the meeting, I went, oh, we didn't answer that question. So it's here today. So a producer, this is basically for licensed under section 21A 408I of the statutes, is medical marijuana. So I will say when it comes to producers of medical marijuana and then cultivators and micro cultivators of marijuana in general, so recreational, the Regulatory Review Committee members really wanted to learn more about potential odor impacts before making a final decision on whether or not those types of facilities growing facilities should be allowed in Mansfield. So they have asked, we're going to staff will be reaching out to 3 communities in Connecticut that have medical marijuana production facilities to see what, if any, issues they have had with offsite odor. The committee has also requested that we reach out and try and schedule a field trip to at least one of those facilities to actually visit and, smell firsthand what we're dealing with. But depending on the outcome of that research, the discussions were maybe considering it. So cultivators, producers, and micro cultivators in the Plan Business 1, which is down by Eastbrook Mall, Plan Business 3, the Four Corners area, and the institutional district. So most of the institutional district, I believe, is actually essentially UConn campus plus town facilities. There are a few private facilities there, and there may be an institutional zone down on the south side of town for the right of way of Route 6, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. Any questions on the producer, cultivator, micro cultivator in terms of that approach?
I think it's important to point out that during the Reg Review Committee, some opinion was suggested. Some people had the opinion, including myself, that might lean toward not allowing the production at all in Mansfield, particularly after we learn about the odors. Depending on what we learn about the odors. Yeah. Vera?
And as we read the new laws, I believe we have a population of 25,906 people, and we're only allowed one site for producing I think it's producing, maybe
it's one micro cultivator and one retailer. It does not put restrictions, ironically, on cultivators or hybrid retailers. So if you are, and the distinction between micro cultivator and cultivator, a micro cultivator is up to at least 2,000 square feet and not more than 10,000 square feet initially. It can grow it can be allowed to increase by the Commissioner of Consumer Protection in 5,000 square foot increments up to 25,000 square feet. And then if they wanted to grow beyond that, they would need a producer's license. Or need to convert to a producer's license. A producer, based on, or a cultivator, rather, I should take that back. They'd have to convert to a cultivator license. A cultivator license essentially starts at 15,000 square feet of grow space and goes up. And I should say that when they're looking at these square footages, it's the grow space. It is not your, it's not your drying space, your curing space, packaging, anything else. They are solely looking at the amount of square feet that is devoted to growing. So again, odor was the big concern, and Paul is correct. And that's why it says, tour to learn more before making a final recommendation on whether to permit in Mansfield. So, and then if you decided you wanted to permit, and if you felt more comfortable, we could take out the maybe PB1, PB3, and I. The reason I put that in is just so that there, people understand, there's two questions. One, do we want to allow it? And if the answer is yes, where would we consider it? And then under what conditions? So those are that's the type of additional information that we need to think about. If we are able to.
I have to leave.
Sorry, Vera.
Bye-bye.
If we are able to secure a field trip, is this something that you would like at the whole commission level, or do you want to leave this to regulatory review?
If it's convenient time.
Okay. Well,
Okay, yeah, if we can get a convenient time, get as many people as possible to go.
All right, well.
I'm sorry for my ignorance, but why are we only restricting to PB1, PB3? Why aren't we looking at agricultural areas, farmlands?
Well, as
because I
out,
believe, and we'll have to verify this, that this is not exterior grow areas.
Oh, okay.
And we'll have to verify. I need to dig into the producer regulations. I do not believe any regulations have currently been written for cultivators or micro cultivators, but I would assume they would be based on the producer regulations. So we'll have to dig into that. But our assumption on this is that we're really dealing with probably enclosed buildings because of security concerns.
And I think agriculture has specifically been excluded from this.
Yeah, they actually amended the definition of agriculture in the statute to specifically say that the cultivation of cannabis is not included within the definition of agriculture.
So I think if we had some old mill in Mansfield that wasn't being used, maybe it would be appropriate, but maybe some other town has an old mill they can use.
Well, there are a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the next category, there's three of them, and I should have regrouped these. I did it alphabetically, but they're essentially, now we're getting into sales. So the first one is dispensary facility. We have one in town. I do need to get an answer. Someone did ask me if Nature's Medicine had closed. I was not aware of that. So I do need to check with Cynthia Van Zelm to see if that is indeed the case. But presently, we have considered dispensary facilities to be office. Because it's appointment only. You do not get in these buildings into a dispensary without an appointment, ID, etc. So it's not like a CVS pharmacy where you're walking in anytime you want to pick up what you're looking for. There's also a lot of security. I'm sure everyone may have noticed that if you look at Nature's Medicines, which is in Four Corners, I believe there are some bars on the windows. I know there were very specific, in talking to the owner, very specific restrictions regarding the type of doors that they had to buy and use in terms of steel and everything else. So the committee reviewed and said, if it's just a dispensary in the Plan Business 1, so again, by Eastbrook Mall, Plan Business 2, which is a few remaining parcels around the Store Center Special Design District, Four Corners PB3, King Hill Road PB4, and Plan Business 5, which is Perkins Corner, that it would be by right with no special permit. My question is, if you're doing new construction, is that something that you want to do a site plan approval for? So I think the kind of thought process on this was we'd be dealing with existing buildings. So that's why that question is in red. That if you want to do new construction, is that something you want to come before the commission?
I would.
Okay.
If it were new construction, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then the next two types of sales that we deal with are retailers and hybrid retailers. So as Vera had mentioned earlier, there is a limitation for retailers in the statute. One, it actually requires that a retailer get a special permit. So it actually takes that decision out of your hands. It's really, do you want to allow retail sales or not? If you do want to allow retail sales, then a special permit is required by statute. And it also, we are limited to one. So one pure retailer based on our population. The hybrid retailer is essentially someone that's licensed to purchase and sell both cannabis and medical marijuana products. So you've kind of got your combined. There is no limit on the number of hybrid retailers based on population. So if you have a dispensary, if you have a kind of that dual
license,
there's no limit. So the discussion that
or Linda, I'm going to interrupt here and ask. So would that mean then that because we already have a medical marijuana site now, if they choose to convert to a hybrid retailer, could we also have a retailer in town?
Correct.
We could have both.
Yes, and you could have more hybrid retailers. So you can have one retailer that's solely that does not do the medical marijuana piece. And it describes what they're licensed to do. So purchasing cannabis from producers, cultivators, product manufacturers, food and beverage, you get one of those. But if you have somebody who is licensed to do both, then there's no limit. So in terms of the locations, the committee recommended Plan Business 1, Eastbrook Mall, Plan Business 3, Four Corners, and Plan Business 5, Perkins Corner as the potential locations for the retailers and hybrid retailers. With regard to Plan Business 2 and the Store Center Special Design District, they would like to get input from the Mansfield Downtown Partnership and the EDC on whether or not that should be considered for those districts. They discuss potentially establishing separation distances from schools and childcare. I will say, I think there's a little difference of opinion on some of the committee members, and I think that's where we'll get into discussion as we move forward with this is it just the high school that we're concerned about? Is it childcare facilities? And so I think that's going to be, really a matter of discussion for the PZC and the council in terms of, what facilities are you concerned with? And I will note the discussion was really limited to schools and childcare. There are other types of establishments, houses of worship, et cetera, that you could establish a separation distance from, but the committee really focused on schools and childcare. And then in red, you'll see the question of, do you want day and hour restrictions? Because we really didn't talk about that. And that is something that could be written into the regulations.
And what about King Hill? Is that PB4?
That's PB4. So if you'd like PB4 to be...
I don't see why it couldn't be PB4.
Okay.
It seemed to be a logical place.
I'd go along with that. May even be more logical.
More logical, not close to a school.
Well,
except a big school.
Okay. And then so day and hour restrictions is also something is that something you think we should be looking at as well?
Do we have restrictions on selling liquor? Do we have hours for selling liquor?
Whatever the state limits it to.
Yep.
We might want to, if those are similar kinds of establishments, maybe we could align those two.
I agree.
Ditto.
All the sins for the same hours.
All right. And so then the next grouping that we have is essentially packaging and manufacturing. So this is essentially folks that are taking cannabis from a cultivator or micro cultivator and creating food or beverages or creating other products with the out of the original plant. So for food and beverage, the discussion was that we should be requiring a public water and sewer for any type of food and beverage manufacturing. May consider, so again, same districts that we talked about for retailers with the addition of the institutional district. So that was added to the manufacturing and packaging. And then potentially considering again in the Plan Business 2, Plan Business 4, and the Storage Center Special Development District. And this was really a scale issue. So if you had if this was not a large facility, but it was a small, a small food and beverage manufacturer, a bakery, I don't know. Jen has informed me that, out in California, a lot of the retailers are very cute. And, they can look very nice on the streetscape. I think that'll depend on what the security that the state recommends. And then in red for, again, all of these, again, the question is, what is the review process? Is it by right, site plan, or special permit? Or is that determined by the size of the facility that you're looking for?
I think it should be a little more restrictive than by right. Yes, go ahead, Carlita.
I'm a little bit confused when you talk about packagers and manufacturers. You're not talking about somebody taking cannabis and making manufacturing products, I don't know, food, beverage.
Yes.
Beverages in their home, are you? You're talking about.
No, this, and that's based on what the committee discussed, is it specifically saying, no, this is not, and I think that may be one of the clarifications we need to add, is that this is not a home occupation. So we'll add that to the notes that cannabis establishments are specifically prohibited as a home occupation.
Good point. Good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, I think we need to clarify that.
This is really, again, proposed for kind of those commercial districts, institutional districts. And, I didn't think you wanted it by right, but I had to throw that in there. Is this a special permit? Is it a site plan review?
Site plan, perhaps a site plan. And do not try this at home.
Okay. So one thing we'll have to look at with the site plan is, you really have, at that point, it just doesn't meet the regulations. So if there's something you don't like about the appearance, if it doesn't fit into the physical context, you will not have the discretion to say no. So I just want to make sure you understand that under site plan review for these.
Paul, my input, my initial response was special permit.
Okay.
But I'd be curious about what the rest of us think.
I could go with special permit.
It's just something I would like to see us review very thoroughly.
I guess I'd have to agree with you. It's a pretty sensitive topic, so maybe we should treat it with quite a bit of delicacy. Good point.
And then the last, so delivery service, the committee discussed again the same three areas: Plan Business 1, Plan Business 3, Plan Business 5. you know, and assuming that if you have a delivery service, you have multiple vehicles that you're going to be parking on site, this seemed to be the most appropriate. Again, special permit or site plan was the question that came under delivery service.
Special permit.
Special permit.
Yep.
And then last but not least, transporter, which we didn't really discuss because it's a person who's licensed. And so this was actually the one where I did have a question of, could a transporter be a home occupation or personal business use? If you're not doing anything, if it never comes to your home and all you're doing is picking it up from one location and driving it to another, honestly, I would not, quite frankly, I'm not even sure it'd be a home occupation. If no one's coming to your home, you're just doing it. So.
Yeah, it's not a home occupation. Yeah.
So.
It's really just a person who's
Correct.
hired to drive a truck. Yeah.
License
Uber
to
for
transport
weed.
between.
Right.
All right. And then last but not least, I said last but not least, but I was wrong. There is one term. It's actually not a cannabis establishment, but they do define laboratory as licensed by Consumer Protection to provide analysis of cannabis to make sure it meets the licensure requirements. And the committee's suggestion was wherever labs are permitted. And I did note that is probably something that we need to revisit in terms of where labs are permitted, but for the moment, we'll go with that. Okay. You may end up wanting to go with the same PB1, PB3 kind of distinction there.
Good.
So
we're moving fast on this, as we've been told to do.
So that is, from a zoning standpoint, that's the approach and the framework that the committee has come up with, and we'll make changes based on the commission's discussion this evening. And again, we'll start reviewing this with advisory committees and commissions. As I noted before, potential ordinances for the council would be regulating the use of cannabis and lighted cigarette pipe or similar form on land under the control of the municipality. In theory, the council could also do an ordinance that just prohibits cannabis establishments townwide. I don't know that that's, given the comments they had during the moratorium, I don't see that being the direction. But again, ultimately, that's why we want to have the commission and the council meet together to make sure everyone's on board with the direction. And lastly, the statute, this is not something we have to deal with, but it does allow voters essentially using the same process that used to exist for alcohol, where with the exception that with alcohol, it was the only way you could change things was a referendum. The statute does allow voters to force a referendum on whether retail sale of cannabis will be allowed. And the referendum must be held if at least 10% of registered voters petition for that referendum. So essentially, you and the council could come up with all these regulations. And if there's a referendum that says, no, we don't want it, it's a moot point.
Okay, very good.
So any other thoughts on this?
I just have a question. Did the town council think of a referendum, of putting it on referendum? Is that also a way to?
The council can't, no, I don't think so. I don't think it's a council option for a referendum. It's ordinances or zoning regulations based on the statute. The referendum option comes in by citizen petition.
Okay.
Very good. Linda, would this be a good forum to tell us about town gown relations?
I can do a little bit under director's report if you would like.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I would.
Okay.
There's a lot going on there.
So I guess I'm fourth on the list under report. So does anyone else?
Okay. The chair doesn't have anything to say. Regional planning. Has anyone been to one of those meetings lately? Reg review we just talked about, and it's up to you.
It's up to me. Okay. I'm sure everyone has probably, I didn't attach it. I know there was an article, there were press releases noting that the university has withdrawn its appeal of the inland wetlands license for the Haven Communities Project. And we can get you a copy of the town's press release. The university also issued a press release directly to press outlets. They did not, it's my understanding, they did not post it online. We do have a copy of the final version of that, indicating that they were withdrawing their objections. So that is one piece. The second piece is that the president of the university has met with the mayor and the town manager and is interested in working on a framework for development between the town and the university. So we actually have our first meeting this week to start planning the process for developing a framework. But it's, so those are, I would say, kind of the two biggest items that I can mention. The other one that I will note is, and I think I have not yet read the article, but there was an article in the Chronicle today regarding pedestrian safety improvements. So you may recall that several months ago, I think I told you that Congressman Courtney had been soliciting applications for potential community projects as part of federal funding. This is, for those of you who are familiar with the federal process, what used to be referred to as earmarks. Now they are community projects. The town submitted 2 for consideration through that process. One was the intersection improvements at Route 89 and Route 195. The other was a sidewalk connection from the intersection of Route 44 and 195 to Tower Loop Road. I am very happy to report that sidewalk project not only made it through Congressman Courtney's vetting process to be one of the projects that he forwarded for consideration, but according to our meeting with him last week, has also made it through the committee vetting process. So we have now, it's very exciting. Now keep in mind, while it has made it to kind of the final community project list, now it's a question of what bill does it get attached to. As I'm sure you're all aware, there's a lot of stuff going on in Washington right now. So, he gave us a few different things. One is the infrastructure bill. There may also be another bill that these projects could be attached to. I believe he indicated that about 70% of members have community projects. So he doesn't see community projects going away. But it's really a question of when and how they'll be funded. But so that project, and I know that's been a priority for the commission for a long time, has made it through all of the committee vetting down in Washington to get on the community project list. I would also like to announce that before that meeting, so I want to say on Wednesday, the mayor reached out last week knowing that Congressman Courtney was coming to ask for a statement of university support for this project, which given the time frame previously, we had not been able to obtain when we originally submitted it. And we did get an email from President Agunobi in support of this project. So that has been provided to the congressman as well to indicate the university has expressed support for this pedestrian safety improvement project. So excellent. So I would say three positive developments.
Yep.
And we'll keep you apprised as we move forward. One thing that I've talked to the town manager about, and I know he has mentioned to the folks at UConn as we start on this framework process, is that at the end of the day, ultimately it's the Planning and Zoning Commission has the final determination over regulations, projects, et cetera. So, the same thing. And I think that went in our Haven press release as well, that, while we were certainly happy to see the withdrawal of that objection, that does not mean the project is by any means approved. That is still something that needs to go through you as the commission, and nothing that's happened takes away from your role in that.
Very good. Those are all very positive.
So
They didn't promise to sell the Capstone property to someone, though. No, can't go that far.
we're at the very early stages, Paul.
Okay, all right.
As I said, our first meeting is literally this week.
Great.
So,
Well, we're going in the right direction.
and so then we have just the other two items on your agenda. Just you do have a communication from the Human Rights Commission regarding affordable housing, which I would encourage you to read. It's based on a survey that they did. I'm sure this is something that the ad hoc committee on affordable housing will also be looking at, as well as proposed amendments to the Tallinn zoning regulations. So,
Okay. Very good. I don't see any reason why we can't adjourn at 8:12 p.m. Thank you all for coming out. See you next time.
thank you all.
Recording stopped.